Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. This session will begin at the top of the hour.
Hello everyone. We're at the starting point of today's webinar brought to you by the Biolink National Center. Our topic today is CROs and Incubators at Educational Institutions. I'm your host, Mike Lasecki, here at the Maricopa Community Colleges in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll be working in the background today, and now I'm going to turn the presentation over to our moderator, Sulatha. Sue, welcome. Please introduce yourself and then take us into the webinar.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Sulatha Dwarkanath. I'm the director at Austin Community College and a part of Biolink. We have been conducting these webinars for a while now. We've had a variety of topics and have had good responses from the audience. And today's webinar, we have a big lineup on CSOs and CROs. So before I get into that, let me clarify one thing. CSO and CRO mean the same thing, Contract Research Organization and Contract Service Organization. It's called CSOs in a community college setting, and CRO is usually used by the industry. Before we get into the webinar, let's talk about Biolink a little bit. There's a huge resource that's available online. It's a NSF funded nationally available network that brings all the bioscience professionals together. It works to increase technicians and bioscience workforce. That is their main aim. They work with, the members are mostly workforce-oriented colleges, high school programs, instructors from a variety of institutions, industry, and of course students. So if you go to biolink.org, bio-link.org, you can get more information, and there's a huge wealth of resources. In the end of the webinar, I'll give you a little glimpse of what resources we have as well. Now, today's webinar on CROs and CSOs and incubators. We have presenters from a variety of colleges who have set up incubators, who have set up CROs and CSOs, and they have been very successful in doing what they're doing today. First off, we will have Deborah Davis. She is from Bluegrass Community Technical College. Part of also Biolink, AC2 Biolink. She will give you an idea about what this all means. She is a little bit younger in the play. She is starting an incubator and a CSO at Bluegrass Community College. She'll give you an idea of what's happening in Kentucky. Abby works with Deborah, and they work together, and they are trying to set this incubator at Bluegrass Community College. Mary Nelson is the next speaker. She will be talking about Salt Lake Community College. Salt Lake Community College was one of the first incubators in a community college that was set up across the nation. And Mary has taken it forward from when it started. She'll give you a little bit of history of what happened in Salt Lake Community College, how it was all set up. And she is now directing Innova Bio and Student Factured. She'll talk more about how this setup is at Salt Lake Community College. And then we have Elizabeth Bodeker from BioBench. She's from St. Louis Community College. We lovingly call Elizabeth Betsy, so maybe you will be hearing us referring to her as Betsy. She is now coordinating the whole effort at St. Louis Community College. They were one of the second incubators across the nation that came up in St. Louis Community College, and Betsy will give you a whole history and what's happening now. They have done really some great work over there. So you will see how they have come up to where they are today. And lastly, you will have Tyler Drake, who is from Austin Community College. He's the director of the Bioscience Incubator at Austin Community College. And as we speak, he's getting ready to open up the incubator on January 31st. He will give you an idea of how ACC started CSO and how now they are into a 10,000 square feet incubator facility for life sciences. So we have a nice lineup for you, and you'll get a history of CSOs and incubators, and you will have, I'm sure, a lot of questions. So give us the questions as we move along. So first up, we have Deb Davis from Kentucky Bluegrass Community College. Deborah, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Sulata, and thank you for calling me young. As Sue said, my name's Deborah Davis. I have a BS in biology and chemistry from the University of Tampa. I have a PhD in biochemistry from the UK College of Medicine. I am currently the associate professor in the biotechnology program, as well as the biotechnology program coordinator here at Bluegrass Community at Technical College, or just BCTC. And I am a co-PI on the AC2 Biolink Regional Center. My group is involved in data collection and reporting to the larger community on community college-run contract services. And our larger grant goals, we are to organize the entire state of Kentucky into a cohesive bioscience network. So we have a little bit of work to do here in this state. What I'm going to do today is just give you a brief background on the data and the information that we've collected for community college contract services. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the accomplishments at BCTC and what we've done to establish the incubator here in Lexington, Kentucky, and how we document those best practices, and then how we are going to disseminate those results. So first, let me just get everybody on the same page about what exactly is a contract research organization. Well, generally it's a for-profit organization that provides support to the bioscience industry in the form of outsourced services. So when I say biotech industry, I'm talking about pharmaceutical companies, maybe pharmaceutical fulfillment industries, medical devices, academic research, independent researchers, government researchers, and the like. Products then are life-saving medicines, medical devices. We're looking to remediate the environment or reduce a carbon footprint, discover alternative energies, and develop robust methods to produce food to help feed the world. So we do a little bit. Now the support from CSOs usually come in the form of things like assay development or testing, maybe some quality assurance, clinical trials, animal models, cloning, subcloning, and the like, usually services that employ expertise in the areas that are not available to companies or researchers. Or maybe these services will dramatically shorten the time to discovery and therefore to market. The latest data estimate that I looked at, and that was just a few days ago, that CSOs estimated revenue in 2016 was about $230 billion. Now that's expected to increase to over $310 billion by the year 2020. And that's not a very long time. So these companies need talent to support their operations. So that's where we come in. So as a community college, are charged to serve our community in teaching and learning, and thus the workforce. And those of us in bioscience education have to prepare those workers for the exponential growth in that workforce need, especially at the low and middle income levels. So as we develop that workforce, we know that hands-on experience plays a very critical role. We know that significant learning can only be accomplished by doing, especially if that learning is highly technical in nature. This is especially true of laboratory technicians, like myself, for example. I didn't learn how to use common laboratory equipment until grad school. In fact, I never even had a pipette in my hand. And so I think this is the mindset of most hiring individuals. So that's why most often you see entry-level jobs that list bachelor's degree as the minimum requirement. So we're tasked with dispelling these misconceptions. So bioscience companies are particularly hard to serve, especially in my area, because many of them have very short lifespans and they frequently change personnel. And that's one of the problems that we want to solve with the contract service organizations. And then the problems are twofold, because educational programs need to establish long-term relationships. But sometimes the community colleges are usually run by a one-person program, and they have to do all the teaching and all the committee work and things like that. So we are really stressed. So what we're trying to do is solve those types of problems. So that is CSOs in a nutshell and what we're trying to do. This slide is a table and a representative of community colleges throughout the country. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and in fact, it is a very fluid table. Things change constantly all the time. It's just simply a representative of each category that we've organized into delivery methods of community colleges that deliver CSO-like work. First of all, there's the in-house, where the contract work is done on site at the college. There's the incubator or accelerator model. This is where contract work is done off-site, usually in a typical bioscience incubator type setting. Co-localization or co-working. So the college and the industry share a workspace. And then your typical work experiences or internships. Now, I'm not going to go through all these different companies and different community colleges, but I do want to highlight just a few of them. For the in-house model, Innova Bio. So that was the very first NSF funded Advanced Technological Education, ATE, CSO, that was associated with the biotechnology program that we know of. And I'm not going to say a lot about this because Mary's going to talk to you about it. But briefly, I just want to tell you that it was started back in the early 2000s at Salt Lake Community College. It was the brainchild of Tamara Getz. She was having difficulty placing students in meaningful work experiences. So her goal was to create flexible, industry-based research opportunities that were available to her students as well as high school students. And so typically they'll contract with projects, both research and development and services from their local life science companies. And then the internships will work on those projects. And those projects are overseen by scientific staff at Innova Bio. The incubator models, BioBench is probably the best example of that. They are located in an incubator. They offer lab space and resources to early stage startup companies. And again, I'm not going to talk a lot about that because Betsy's going to tell us all about BioBench in St. Louis. And then Tyler's going to talk to you about probably the best example in the country of an incubator, and that's at Austin Community College. And I don't want to spoil the surprise because Tyler's got a lot of good stuff that he's going to talk about. The co-localization, co-working model, this is where the college will share space. with industry. So 2 labs basically, excuse me, academic and commercial, to be side by side with common spaces and equipment. And then of course the work experiences. This is most colleges have internships or externships that provide students with hands-on experience. You know, we've had reports that these experiences are very valuable. We've had reports that these experiences are not very valuable. A few people have said that students end up working in dark corners, doing literature searches. So we're trying to solve that problem as well. Now, what we found out is that most companies and colleges or educational institutions have the same challenges no matter where they're located. So the challenges for companies is trying to find fitted lab space. It's very, very difficult to find. This is the national problem. Yes, it is a problem for startups, but it's also a problem for many mid-sized established bioscience companies, because you just can't afford to build out wet lab space. It can cost upwards of $1,000 a square foot. And that's not even with the equipment. And if you have to have a GMP facility, that could even double. Now, so that's not even equipment, that's just the space. So let's talk about equipment. It's expensive to buy. It's even more expensive to run and maintain. Small companies can't afford things like maybe flow cytometry, maybe some sequencing, DNA sequencing, structural work, microscopy, animal facilities. It's just way out of their reach. And then there's trained personnel. Talent's expensive, and not just talent at the upper level, talent even at the lower entry level and mid-level. And if they're part of a university incubator, generally most companies have to dedicate at least some portion of the intellectual property or IP. And if you're part of a university incubator, you're expected to graduate within 3 years. In other words, you have to find another space within 3 years. So now we're back to trying to find wet lab space. For educational institutions, both colleges and students, the big problem that most of us have in our industry is finding work experiences. And if we do find them, sometimes they're not very meaningful. That then reduces the competitiveness of our students when it comes time to find a job or begin a career. So then that lack of preparedness is going to affect our community and industry attitudes towards our students in our institutions. But what we have found is basically everything, all those problems and constraints can be attributed to a lack of understanding of what we do and how we do it. So we are looking at solving all those problems here in our area. So what do we do? How are we going to solve that? Well, first of all, we're going to offer low-cost lab space. Companies can rent a bench for as little as a day. So if they just need to do one thing, maybe with some of our specialized equipment or high-end equipment, they can use our equipment and they can use our lab space. And we can provide students what I like to call just-in-time lab talent. So investigators may use those students. And then the college then is engaged in the community and fostering more partnerships, which is a community college's charge, is to be involved in their community. And lastly, investigators don't have to worry about their IP. Their IP is not compromised. We're not asking for any part of that whatsoever. So how are we going to do that? Well, we are going to, first of all, we're going to build a new science and technology building. Hopefully you can see that this is land that was a gift from the state of Kentucky a few years ago. It's the old site of Eastern State Mental Hospital. Most of the old structures have been demolished, with the exception of the administration building, which is in your foreground. You can see that, and an original laundry facility. And then, well, it's another time for a story about what was found on the grounds when we started building the classroom building. That's in the lower left quadrant. So the new building, the new Science and Technology building is started, or we broke ground on April the 20th of last year. And the picture in the upper right-hand corner, that was about 6 months ago. That showed the building with the foundation being completed. And then the lower right picture is a few weeks ago. Actually, I think it was last Friday. So the building is coming along. And we are going to be located where that little smiley face is. There will be a dedicated wet lab space and a co-working space that we can rent a bench. There's going to be a shared equipment room, and most importantly, a learning laboratory. This laboratory is going to be where both students and faculty will be prepared to maximally assist our local bioeconomy that drives the industry forward. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to prepare our students and our faculty? Well, we're going to do that by a series of curriculum, one for students, one for faculty. The student one is called the Learning Laboratory. It's a credit-bearing class designed to mimic employment at bioscience firms. Students make application. They are interviewed. They are presented with employee handbook and different types of paperwork, and they're held accountable for their performance. Assessments will consist of skills components, of course, but other work-ready indicators such as memo, letter writing, email protocols, attendance, time management, dress code, and the like. And these are addressing soft skills that all employers say are extremely critical, and sometimes even more critical than technical skills. The project management for faculty, that curriculum is being developed by Austin Community College, and this curriculum, when it's finished, will be made available for everyone, for everybody's use. So as previously mentioned, all these problems that we're solving with the addition of one extra, and that is an additional revenue stream. That comes in the form of tuition funds from students for the Learning Laboratory, and then income from renting space as well as service incomes. We will also have a stock room that other science programs in the college may use. We get a small income from that, and we're looking to supply biological reagents too, such as enzymes and buffers and things like that. So what have we been able to accomplish in this last year and a half? We've purchased equipment. So if you look at that left-hand picture, that is an Illumina MySeq, so a high throughput DNA sequencing machine. So we're looking to take on sequencing projects. We have a bioanalyzer, a gel and blotting documentation system. We have an ultra high-speed centrifuge that I'm told will go up to 1 million times G. It's pretty fast. And then we'll consider other equipment based on any contractual needs that we determine when we contract with companies. We're developing contracts and project narratives with companies. We have 2 so far interested in our services. And actually, Betsy is going to talk a little bit more about the community college network that we're looking to implement, where we can share our projects throughout the country. And lastly, I wanted to let everyone know that there's a very important meeting that's going to be held in April of this year at Austin Community College. It's the CSO or BioScience Summit, Community Colleges as Drivers for Economic Development. You can go to our website, and I believe that website is listed down there at the bottom. So it's our website, upcoming events. There's a place to register for the event. But briefly, this summit is funded by NSF, and it's a continuation of a conversation we began 5 years ago. At that summit that was held in St. Louis, we wanted to know how community colleges were embedding valuable work experiences within their programs using the CSO type model. But now we're looking to revisit those recommendations. And we want to know how colleges are embedding entrepreneurial activities into their programs, specifically how to embed those activities that will result in sustainability of the program. So I invite each of you to attend. We do have limited scholarships available. Go to the website, check it out, and thank you for listening very much. Questions can be typed into that box, as they said, or if you want to contact me directly, my contact information is at the beginning of the presentation under the presenter bios, and I appreciate it. Sue, back to you.
Thank you, Deborah. That was a nice overview on what's happening and what's happening at Bluegrass. Now, next up, we'll have Mary Nelson from Salt Lake Community College. She's going to give us a little bit of history of how they started and how they have expanded and how they have moved into some manufacturing CSO. One of them had a question, the audience had a question about, can we do a CSO with, having a manufacturing setup? And yes, ACC has done some of that work, and Mary has a whole set of things going on in manufacturing, so she will explain and you'll get your answer from that. Okay, Mary, take it away.
Thank you, Sue. So this is Mary Nelson. I have my background is that I have a BS in biochemistry from Seattle University. From there, I went to the University of Utah and worked at the Huntsman Cancer Institute and got my PhD in oncological sciences. Shortly after I graduated from the University of Utah, I was recruited to work at Salt Lake Community College by the previous director, and I'll get back to him later. So just an overview, Salt Lake Community College has a biotechnology program. Within that, there's InnovaBio, which is the contract research organization. We also have Student Factured, which is the contract manufacturing organization. The college also has a medical devices program. It's not technically handled through our program, but I will be referring to it later. So to start with, I'll be talking about InnovaBio. So InnovaBio, like as Deb said, was started by a grant awarded to the college for Tammy Getz to create this contract research organization where students could do their internships in-house. When the grant funding ended, Tammy was in the right place at the right time and was able to secure funding through the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Development. So that continues, that allows us to continue, and we have 3 staff members, which I'll talk about here on the next slide. So the core philosophy that Adam Blaschak said we should pride ourselves on is that we have real projects. That means we go out to biotech companies, typically in the Salt Lake area, and ask them for back burner or low priority projects. And if they're willing, we bring those projects back to our lab. We have our students do the work, and we direct the students in that process. We are staffed by 3 scientists. This is something the state funding has allowed us to keep and provide for our students. And I'll talk about them on the next slide. We also like to pride ourselves in having real equipment. So the equipment you would find at a university lab or a biotech company, you can see in the picture, we have the pipette man, typical stuff, centrifuges, all kinds of typical lab equipment. And as the interns come in, we have expectations for them. We expect them to ask questions. Seems simple, but sometimes it's hard to get them to ask those questions. And we say try to ask them before you make a mistake, but we do expect mistakes to happen. And just from that, we expect you to learn from your mistakes and move forward. We try to encourage our students to become independent scientists so they'll know all aspects of the project they're working on, but we also want them to develop that teamwork so they can complete the projects more efficiently. All students will do project presentations, and that's usually towards the end of the semester, but we're kind of fluid in when we allow students to begin and end. So here are our staff members. Kate Slesser is our scientist and mentor, and she is the one who spends most of her time in the lab mentoring students, advising them on their projects, head-to-head, sitting with the students, talking about their data and what they should do next. Alejandro Pabon is our project manager, and he ensures that our projects are designed and moved along in a timely manner. So yeah, those are our staff members, and we're lucky to have 3 people to run this organization. We get our interns from various sources. We have volunteers that are sometimes incumbent workers, so people who are working at companies, they might have their degree but want to either move up or would like to gain new skills so they can apply for other jobs. We have high school students that join us. They're taking a concurrent enrollment course, and the JATC, the Jordan Applied Tech Center, is on our campus. Itinerus has just moved across the street, and New Ames is the Northern Utah Academy of Math, Engineering, and Science, and we'll have students come down from there. They're located in Ogden, so it's about an hour train ride to get here. We also have our typical SLCC students that are working towards their associates in biotech. UVU is fully articulated with the SLCC program, so students can move on to that and earn a bachelor's degree. UVU students can also work in our lab to earn their internship hours. We do typically have part-time paid students on our staff to serve as project leaders and to help with general lab maintenance. We're currently averaging about 10 new interns a semester. That's down from about 20 a few years ago. We're suffering from low enrollment across the college, so hopefully we can get that back to our normal 20 new interns a semester. Since 2006, over 540 interns have been trained and are in the workforce. So just quickly, our curriculum that we have our interns do, everybody starts off doing a training packet no matter what their background is. And typically students have taken those introductory courses, the 1010 and 1015, where they get basic molecular biology skills. So they demonstrate those in the training packet. They'll do a transformation, prepare a culture, mini prep, DNA from that culture, do a restriction digest, PCR. And the new thing to them is to do expression in E. coli. So continuing on with our curriculum, we ask the students to demonstrate conceptual skills and abilities. So they do a quick exercise in designing primers. They read and report from the primary literature, and they're periodically evaluated on their job skills, so attendance, reliability, all those typical soft skills. And we do our best to tell them, give them strong support on how they can develop those skills more effectively. So our advanced curriculum is then defined by the CRO projects. We worked with all of these companies here and a few more. I'd like to highlight Cytozyme. They are an agricultural company. They provide supplements for farmers to use on their crops. They came to us and said, our crops say our farmers say that the crops grow better, and we'd like to have some, scientific support for that claim. And so we did some gene expression studies to see what application of their product would do. We were wildly successful. They asked our intern who was working on the project to present the work at an international meeting in France. In addition, they liked the work so much that they took our previous director, Adam Blaschek, and he now heads the molecular biology lab at Cytozyme. So just a few things I want to mention from our contract that we have with all these biotech companies. And it has the typical contract things that were generated by risk management. We had a template document to cover obligations, and I'll talk about intellectual property in further detail below. So all contracts and contract changes need to be approved by our vice president. One quick note, SLCC has no interest in the intellectual property, so everything we do under contract belongs to the company, and that includes work in the lab notebooks. One other key thing is that InnovaBio has interns who are minors, those high school students that come to us from usually the tech programs. We don't have any legally binding confidentiality agreements, and this is a risk to our clients, but we tell them we can mitigate those risks by restricting access to confidential information. So we have the option, they can code the information, code their products that we're testing, and then we won't know, and our students won't know, and they won't be at risk for divulging any confidential information. So yeah, we can code things. If they tell us something is confidential as a staff, we might know that information, but not pass it along to the students. So we had a few lessons that we've learned by trial and error. We don't charge for we only charge for lab consumables. We don't charge for labor. And InnovaBio doesn't provide incubator space. All spaces, lab spaces may be used as classrooms in the evenings. And all projects are directed by InnovaBio staff. That prevents our students from getting too much pressure. The last thing we want is for students to do poorly in their other classes because they're being pressured to do InnovaBio projects. In general, like I said, interns are not paid. They can earn college credit and gain experience. And we're happy to write letters of recommendation. And like I said, we do have part-time paid students who are project leaders. Regarding our contract, we typically have one larger contract, and from that we say in the contract we'll put together an experimental design, and then the company approves each of those experimental designs, and we can work on those projects. So one other thing that we've done at InnovaBio is collaborate with NSF Funded Companies. So the NSF, if the NSF supports one of the Small Business Innovative Research grants and the company is at phase 2, there is supplemental funding from community colleges, and we have done a project with our local company, Echelon, and with a company in Irvine, California called Incent. I'd like to move on and talk a little bit about student-factured. The idea is that it's a biomanufacturing training enterprise. The concept is that it's a student-run, nonprofit biomanufacturing company. It was conceived and established by Vivian on Windward. She wrote the grant that was awarded to establish the company. The company launched in 2012, and we had grant funding until June of 2016, and now we are supported by SLCC Biotech Program. Just a quick note on our name, Student Factured. It's student manufacturing education. So our tagline is made by students for students. So we like to, this made by students for students. We typically make educational supplies. There's a Board of Regents policy for non-compete. And so if we stick within selling products to our own institution or high schools that work with us in the concurrent enrollment courses. Our students do design and develop biotech products, and it's kind of interesting to see the students as they go through the development process and learn how to use design controls. This is somewhat high-level stuff, but we just give them that exposure so they can take that into the company. We like to say that we simulate a regulated environment, but as a training facility, we can't quite get there, but we do our best to function as a regulated company. So just quickly, the original conception of the project was that the biomanufacturing program would collaborate with the School of Business, and so both programs, people would get cross-training towards, they would get cross-training, and that turned out it didn't work so well. The School of Business was getting frustrated because we don't charge all of the things that typical businesses have to charge. There isn't any overhead, there aren't labor costs, and so there was just a difference, and they decided to pull out. Student Factured went into the biomanufacturing program, and eventually the biomanufacturing program didn't have enough students to continue, but everything now is rolled into the biotechnology program. And students are the foundation. If we don't have students and if we don't have projects for them, we don't have jobs. So just quickly, the interns that come to us are similar to a NovaBio. They can actually start in a NovaBio, and once they finish the training packet, elect to go into Student Factured and get more of that biomanufacturing skills. Other students or interns that come to us have taken some of the medical device courses, and they're looking for training in quality control. We have one student right now studying for the CQIA certificate through the American Society for Quality. And the products that we sell, we have a series of plasmids that we sell to our concurrent enrollment teachers, both at the high school and the college. We make auger plates. This is a new project for us for the microbiology program at SLIC. We've just sent out our first orders this month. Just a quick picture of our products. So yeah, we have a plate pourer in the lab, and we can put together plates at their request. They have different kinds of plates that they want from us. Like I said, we have the plasmid identification kit. We also manufacture the cheek cell DNA kit, and this is just an outreach. It's intended for typically K-12, get them interested in science. We can do this kit with them at some of these outreach events. So the curriculum, a little bit more about that. The students get real training. They're doing real projects. We are manufacturing. We try to teach them as much as we can lean principles, how to follow the GXPs, so good documentation practices, good laboratory practices. We have an emphasis on quality standards, so we have a module within the intern where they can do design controls. So if they start a new project, we have the paperwork, and we've got SOPs, how to follow that paperwork that was developed by a student in a master's program at the University of Utah. We have a quality management system. We have a quality manual, and we work with Master Control as our document management system, and this is software that's used in several companies that the students may go work at after they complete their degree. So we like this to be a self-driven learning environment, and sometimes we allow those students to maybe do the things that wouldn't be a good manufacturing process, but then they realize, oh wait, I should have done it this way. And we can tell them all the time what they should do, but until they realize it themselves, they don't really take in the information of how things should be done according to good manufacturing practices. And the students get to experience a number of different functions within a company. So they can wear different hats all the time. They can participate in developing quality controls or do validations on new products. We have marketing. They can design our product inserts. Document management is another thing we try to give them skills in. So students can come in, and as they're working on the project, they may wear all of these hats. And I think it's a good experience for them just to be familiar with it, and it helps them be a better employee because they understand that all of these things are part of working in a company, and gives them good reason to follow standard procedures. So just quickly, like I said, it was initiated by Vivian on Windward. She left. She took a job in California. So now I'm the director. We have one student who's a peer mentor. And we are now currently looking for a production manager who will assist and make sure the students meet production needs as they come in and do their projects. And with that, I thank you for your time today. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Sue.
Thanks, Mary. That was a very interesting presentation you had. You know, it shows how you started your history and how, you know, based on the students' needs and everybody else's needs around you, the industry needs, you kind of morphed it into a different organization and started a new one. So, you know, this is great. This is really nice to see how you guys are progressing. Thank you. We have some questions. We have actually a lot of questions, but I think I will defer some of them to the last part of the question answer session because some of them will be covered by the next two presenters. But quickly, one quick question will be specific liability issues. Are there any liability issues that come up, or is it covered by the college? How do you guys deal with liability? And any of the speakers can just jump in and answer this question.
Well, Sue, I can tell you for St. Louis Community College, when we have contracts written up, it is specified within that contract that any client that signs up to use our equipment, that they have liability insurance of their own. And so any liability issues are going to be covered by their own insurance and not the college's.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. And Tyler, do you have any comments on that?
Similarly, we require the same thing. So if a company is coming onto an ACC campus or ACC property, we require that they have a commercial general liability policy. Now, if we are doing a project completely in-house, meaning ACC property with ACC faculty and staff, faculty and interns or students, we do not have that same requirement.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. And Mary, do you guys have the same issue? Because you are not an incubator, you're more like a CSO. So do you have some issues in terms of liability?
So like you said, they're all in-house projects. So students are covered for liability when they register for credit, and the college will also accept volunteers. And so many of our people in the lab are volunteers, and so they accept liability for them as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for those answers. Moving on, let's move on to Betsy, who's going to talk about St. Louis Community College Incubator and CRO. It's called the BioBench. And she will give us a history of what's happening, and she will also touch upon some of the IP issues, company confidentiality, insurance requirements, you know, so a lot of environmental health safety things, because, you know, our industry requires a lot of compliances that you need to follow. So she'll touch upon some of them, and then maybe we can discuss more in detail in the question answer session. Go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you, Sue. So just to kind of give folks some my background, a little bit of background for me. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in molecular biology. I do not have a PhD, but I also have about 25 years of laboratory experience, including about the last 10 years before I joined here at the community college full-time in industry with a for-profit company. And so we are located within an industry building, and it's called Bio Research and Development Growth Park, or Bridge Park. The BioBench is embedded with the Center for Plant and Life Sciences, or CPLS, and that is a small satellite campus of St. Louis Community College that's probably most closely affiliated with our Florissant Valley campus. And so St. Louis Community College, for those of you that don't know, actually has a pretty huge presence here in St. Louis with 4 different campuses and a couple of centers for excellence or satellite campuses. And in this industry building, we are about half of the first floor, which gives us some great visibility for people coming in and out of the building. You know, they can't come in an entrance without seeing some St. Louis Community College signs. But it also gives us, while it gives us great visibility, it also allows us to make great connections, which I think is really important. We've got a lot of companies in the building with us. There's an announcement later today about yet another company that's coming to St. Louis. And so by having our facility here embedded within an industry building, it really gives us some great access to a lot of these companies, from startups all the way to medium and large size companies that have actually come through this building. And so, these connections are really important. You've heard some of the previous speakers talk about, you know, we want to have these great opportunities for our student interns coming through our biotech programs, and having those connections is really enabling us to get those placements with these companies, and you know, for current biotech students, and then after that, jobs for our former graduates. It's so nice because I've lost count of how many former students are actually still employed within the building, because they can still come by and say hi and, hey, how's it going? How are classes this semester? And so that's really nice to be able to keep in touch and hear how it's going with them. You know, additionally, not just in Bridge Park, but we are close to so much regional biotech in the area. We're across the street from Monsanto. Our neighbor is the Danforth Plant Science Center. We're within, you know, 15, 20 minutes from Washington and St. Louis universities, which are well known for their research. And then we're a mile from the Helix Center. We're, you know, 20 minutes from the Cortex, and those are both resources for companies in the area that are starting up or have kind of evolved past that startup level. And so within the Center for Plant and Life Sciences, then, you know, and in particular the BioBench, but the Center for Plant and Life Science obviously are, and I'm sure other community college speakers for this will agree, that our education is our #1 goal. And so that is highest priority over everything else. But in addition to that, then, outside of that education role, I do feel that we really have an obligation to promote STEM and biotech. And for St. Louis Community College, we do have a number of programs, so that if anyone is really expressing an interest in, you know, science or biotechnology, we have a pathway in place that's going to help them enter the field. And so if you're not college ready but you've expressed an interest, we have a life science lab assistant program. If you are college ready and you have the required prerequisites, we have our biotechnology program that you can enter into right away. And then additionally, we have so many outreach events, it's impossible to keep track of them. Located here at the Center for Plant and Life Science, we do have a dedicated educational specialist, Angela Taylor, and she does a lot of outreach to high school and middle school. She does workshops here on site at Bridge Park, which is really nice to give high school students that exposure to kind of an industry lab setting, so that they can kind of see how professionals in the field behave, and it kind of gives them a different experience than just doing a little bit of lab research back at their schools. Because of some of her just extraordinary outreach efforts, we have had this incredible uptick in high school students really wanting a more in-depth research opportunity. And so we have been able to bring in a lot of high school students. Sometimes we're able to do a dual credit situation with their high schools so that they're getting college credit in addition to high school credit. But this is just a really great avenue to help build some of that interest and enthusiasm in science. And it's really enabling, you know, more, I hope at the end, more technicians that are going to be entering the field in this region. And so I'll talk a little bit more about how some of the funds that we're getting from the contract research organization are kind of getting funneled back into some of this high school research. Additionally, we do teacher education here, where we just did get funded again, for summer teacher workshops where we have a week of education in biotech for teachers teaching biology, trying to give them tools that they could potentially implement in their classrooms in the fall. And so, again, our BioBench, our role here, we are really promoting industry in life sciences and biotechnology. And one way that we can do that is in addition to really helping our students and getting great opportunities for them in internships and jobs at the end of that, is really where, I hate to say, educating the industry as well, but I think that many of you would agree that there is kind of a stigma when it comes to community college students. And, you know, I think changing that perception is an ongoing battle. And it is very interesting to me, though, that once we get one of our biotechnology students in a lab that has never taken them before, that's it. We usually have, you know, once we win the battle and we get somebody in there and they see how great they are, they come back every year, every 6 months, and want somebody else. And so that's nice to see that happening more and more. But one way that we can promote, you know, a lot of these startup companies and even more of a medium-sized company is with these limited and full lab use agreements that we allow. And these are legal contracts. Some cases, if it's a limited lab use agreement where they're only accessing a certain piece of equipment on a regular basis, we will designate what that equipment is. Most of our clients opt for an all access where they can access everything in the lab that we have, and we have been extraordinarily fortunate in our grant funding and how we've been able to outfit our laboratory spaces here. We have, kind of as Mary said previously, we have real equipment, and so it is equipment that is absolutely utilized in the industry on a day-to-day basis. And so that is really nice to be able to offer our students training on such equipment. It's going to give them a leg up when they actually go out and are trying to find employment. But it also is very attractive to startup companies or small or medium-sized companies that maybe don't have a lot of budget to expend on equipment. And so we can kind of define specific equipment or allow them all access to our laboratory space. We do have clearly defined within our contract that if a client requires access to, you know, say a centrifuge or some other piece of equipment, and there is an ongoing class that also requires access to that equipment, that the class wins. And so we definitely have outlined within our client contracts that classes will always take priority over your research, and everybody still continues to sign and accept that as a parameter of their contract with us. Safety is also kind of outlined within there that they're going to have to be, you know, practicing proper lab safety and proper disposal of hazardous waste. We also stipulate that consumables are 100% the responsibility of the client, that, you know, they can come use a centrifuge, that's fine, but we're not going to provide them the disposable tubes to use that. And so we do outline much of that in our extensive lab use agreement contract. Other things like liability insurance are also outlined in there and what the parameters on that happen to be. So, you know, we have a lot of, we do also kind of define what the cost for the various lab uses might be. We do also have project support where we do sequencing for a lot of the folks in the area, as well as, you know, we do get occasional submissions from outside of St. Louis. We have several other ongoing projects with the Danforth Plant Science Center next door, where we're doing part of a big research project and they're doing part of a big research project. And then, you know, kind of encompassed in this BioBench role is a lot of the internships. All of the internship assignments for our biotechnology program come through me. Right now, these are paid interns that are actually supported by the My Son Foundation, and so they have given us a very, very nice grant to help support our biotechnology interns during their internship and workplace learning opportunities. And so what this means is that it enables me to then assign an intern to maybe a startup company or a small company. We, through the college and this grant funding, are able to pay the student, and the companies then can utilize their their student to help them with their work, prove their concept, whatever it happens to be. But they're getting a great experience, especially if they end up in a startup situation. They can see how everybody in a startup kind of wears multiple hats, and they're kind of asked to do the same thing. So it's a very valuable experience for them, and I think that they come out on the other side with some really great experience and understanding of the field in general. And so I think, I like to talk about expectations and success as well, because I think coming into this when there was a lot of vision with the college at that time, and they made the commitment to this contract research organization. And I think when I was hired, the initial expectation was that after a few years that this would be a self-sustaining entity. And so I think once you start thinking about the cost of the space here in an industry building, the salaries of the few folks that are employed here, the equipment service agreements alone, it is not a realistic expectation to say that if in order for us to be successful, we have to be self-sustaining. We are going to have to be supported and committed by the college to continue that support because there is a lot of cost associated with our placement here. So it is not realistic or possible to be self-sustaining. Most of the equipment that we have, as I've mentioned, as kind of Mary had mentioned too, we have real equipment. It is high-end technical equipment, and we use it in our classes, and so we are training our students on this equipment. It's an added bonus that the industry is coming in. These startup companies are gaining access to it for a small monthly fee to access our lab space. But it's really kind of hard to separate out. How do we separate out how much it's being used for teaching, how much it's being used for industry support when we're actually stipulating within our contract that, we care about your research, but if it's between you and the class wins. I think there's going to have to be a cost associated with it there. But living here at Bridge Park, the industry setting is extremely important, and I think that is also very costly. It's very clear to see how much we're putting out every month for rent. I think how to calculate out it's challenging to calculate how that return is actually coming back to the college. But I think it is there. I think it's just something that's not as obvious it's when you start thinking about some of those kind of less defined things that we see the return on that investment. And so I think it's important that we think about that, and that when we're talking about success, that we kind of redefine what we mean by that, and that we kind of redefine what that goal might actually be. And so for us, I do think that we are successful. I am very pleased with where we are. I think we have a lot of support with our chancellor and our board of trustees. But I think we needed to redefine that success terminology does not mean self-sustaining. And so we have great opportunities for our biotechnology students. We've got 30% of our biotech interns that intern with a company end up getting hired by that company in full-time positions. And I think that that's a really nice, almost like a direct line to employment, which makes everyone happy. Overall, though, our biotechnology students, with that workplace learning being a really key part of this, we have a 91% placement rate of our graduates in industry jobs. We are seeing an enormous increase in our program enrollment, and we're a small program, so an increase in that program enrollment is just, maybe we're able to offer a few extra classes. I do think some of that program success can be attributed directly to our terrific biotech coordinator, Jennifer Hill, who devotes a lot of time and attention to recruitment and for caring for the students that we actually already have as our student population. And so I think that there's a lot of attention to those students that are required to keep them moving through the program and to promote their success. We are successful because we are supporting the industry, and so we are providing a very essential resource for small startup companies in the region that need access to some of this equipment. They're not going to have $25,000 that they can spend on an imager. So if they can access ours, it allows them some success in their work for a very minimal fee. And it allows us to kind of expose our students to many of these startup company personnel, how they work, how they think, how things move in such a company. I find it very interesting that we also have written into our contract that we want no part of your intellectual property, that is absolutely yours. And I do remember going around a couple of times with that before I won that battle initially. But I find it very interesting that that seems to be the consensus across the board with the community colleges, which I think is definitely a unique thing that is setting us apart from the four-year institutions in our region. I promise you that no intellectual property around here in St. Louis, that is a deal breaker. If we wanted part of their intellectual property, they would set up something in their garage before they would come work with us. And I think that that is a mistake that many of the 4 years are making. Washington University, St. Louis University, they want a huge piece of that intellectual property, which is exactly why these startup companies are not going there. And I think that that's actually played very well for us, not having that claim on the intellectual property. So by helping these companies when they're small, we're allowing their access to laboratory space and equipment. We are seeing them prove their proof of concept ideas. They are growing, and in our case, many of those companies are remaining local to the St. Louis region, and they're employing local by hiring former interns from our program and graduates in the biotech program. So this is working out well for many, many people. And so one of the questions I came up with, we were asked to come up with some questions, and my question was, do you feel that your organization would be flexible or at least a little more open in what their definition of a contract research organization success would be? And I know that that was kind of a battle. I think a lot of the battle has to do with changing perceptions in the area, and I think maybe that initial expectation was there, but I think we have kind of won over some of that perception, and that the definition of success for us now is definitely very different than it was when I was hired in November of 2009. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of maybes there, and I think that that's probably very much what I expected. Is that you're not sure, because until you actually get into some of the stuff, I think it's not clear how it's gonna shake out. And so if I kind of move on now, I want to just kind of share with you. It's one thing for me to say, oh, we're having an impact, but I want to talk about one specific example, and we actually have, narrowing this down to just one was quite the challenge, because we have quite a few of these that we could use that are an example of how we are actually making a big difference. And so, and kind of goes to that, how do you quantify this being in this building and the cost that it's costing the college to have us here. But so the New Leaf Symbiotic story is, we have a company, New Leaf Symbiotic. They work on a pink pigmented facultative methylotrope, say that 5 times fast. And it's basically a beneficial bacteria that is affiliated with plants and seems to have a very beneficial effect on them, under adverse conditions like drought or extreme heat. They initially started in our lab space in January of 2012, and we were the only lab space. They had 1 lead scientist in their employ, and they requested, once they signed the lab use agreement with us, they requested 3 interns to work with them. And against my better judgment, I agreed, and then I saw how hard they worked, those 3 interns. I was very happy with my decision. But very quickly they were able to prove their concept and move into field studies that same year. And by the following January, we're awarded $7 million in funding. And I think it's a good point to mention that the head people of this company are from Boston, and at that time could absolutely have located their main lab space. They could have just moved it off to the East Coast. They made the conscious decision to stay in St. Louis. Some of their rationale was for the trained workforce that they'd be able to draw from the St. Louis Community College. They set up laboratory here. They hired all the former interns as full-time employees in their company. They continued their success and summer 2014 received another $17 million where they've now expanded their facilities. They've added some production. They've added some research and development. Currently, we have 7 graduates of STLCC biotech program employed by them. We still place interns with them, and right now their total headcount is somewhere over 30. So they've gone from 1 full-time employee to more than 30 people. And so that's not just an impact on our individual students coming out of the biotechnology program. That's an impact on the industry, that we now have this successful company is contributing to the St. Louis economy. And so I think that that is a really happy place for us to be playing. And so challenges, I think many challenges still exist that are very similar to when I started here in 2009. We are within the Center for Plant and Life Sciences, and we are a very small team here in the center. We have very limited ability to have any kind of discussion regarding increasing headcount, and so all the stuff that we're doing with the CRO, it is me as the full-time senior scientist. I have another full-time individual that works with me who handles a lot of the business aspects, some of the invoicing, the budgeting, and limited when she has time to go in the lab and help with things. We have 1 part-time lab support person to help with some of these ongoing projects that we've got going, to help with some of the interns if they're working within our lab space. Our extensive high school research, she's really kind of swamped with that right now, but we have a very small and devoted staff with limited resources. I feel that we really accomplish a lot given the small staff that we've got. The high school research, a lot of our CRO funds that we end up collecting from clients, we are right now kind of funneling that back into some of the high school research that we're trying to support, as well as trying to pick up some of those service agreement contracts to maintain the very high-end equipment that we've got here at the center. And so that money kind of just goes right back in to the whole thing to keep it rolling. And so I'm going to just mention, too, that we're getting a lot of recognition right now, and it's always nice to have recognition for hard work and effort and kind of belief in what you're doing. But I think that for us it has an even bigger role because we're a very tiny bit of these multi-campuses of St. Louis Community College. And if you look at, the cost of maintaining a biotechnology program, the space that we're, using money from the St. Louis Community College to support us here, we're very costly to the college. And so having some of this recognition locally and nationally is really important. Because our costs are higher, I do feel that the scrutiny on what we do here is higher. And so that recognition is really helping us justify the cost that's being spent here and shows that, what we're doing is actually having a very positive impact, not only on the college, the recognition of the college locally and nationally, but on the industry and the vocalization from those industry partners is helpful with that as well. So we recently had a podcast I was participating in locally. I was one of 3 panelists, and it was a really nice story where one panelist was from the Yield Lab, which is a group that helps fund a lot of the startup companies locally. And then one of the other panelists was a former St. Louis Community College Biotechnology Program graduate, and she's working for a company called Arvogenics. She was the first full-time employee of Arvogenics. And my role, I actually assigned her to Arvogenics as an intern, which then turned into a full-time employment for her. So it was really, really nice story with the 3 panelists and how they were able to tie us all together. We have recently been a nominee finalist again for the 2nd time for the ARCUS Award, which is a St. Louis Regional Chamber Award, and it's an organization that is championing a better tomorrow for our region, and so we'll find out about that award. I think that award ceremony is later in February. And then nationally, we have a few things, too, where we've got 2 years in a row, we were nominated as a finalist for the Bellwether Awards, which is Community College Futures Assembly in the Programs and Industry Pipeline, which is and pretty prestigious. We didn't win, but we were one of 10 finalists out of hundreds and hundreds of nominees, and so it was a very nice nomination for us to make it as a finalist 2 years in a row. We're also going to be featured on a public television series with James Earl Jones called Behind the Scenes, and that is scheduled to air later this year. And so these are really nice things that we can be, posting on our website and sharing with the Chancellor and our Board of Trustees that is really helpful in justifying our impact here. And so I'm always interested in, I think because I don't know, I am always trying to get better and improve things, and how can we be more effective, or how can we broaden our impact? So I think about this a lot. And so when Abby suggested this community college consortium, I was very excited about that prospect, and I'm hopeful that that's something that is moving forward, that we're all going to be able to work together to help us kind of expand our capabilities and to help the community college. This whole idea of these CROs and CSOs getting set up at these community colleges, helping everyone be more successful in what we're trying to do. I think it's a great idea for this consortium, and I'm all behind it, and I'm happy to participate in it. And in fact, I've even already worked up special pricing for consortium members, and so I'm very anxious to see how that's going to pan out in the future. I'm also always interested in trying to help our high school teachers teach science better, and maybe help set up a network where we could be helping some of these schools, provide resources like C. elegans or bacteria or vectors, or guidance on products and projects. And maybe that's something, I know with some of the things that Mary and her group produce, maybe that's another way that the consortium could be involved in kind of helping some of the network of high schools across the country as well. Our resources, as I mentioned, are extremely limited right now, and so we're pretty stretched right now, but I'm always hopeful that we're going to end up with a head count at some point, which will allow us to do so much more than we do already. And I'm always open to lots of other ideas on how we can broaden our impact, not just St. Louis Community College, but how the community colleges can play a bigger role in what's happening across the country now. And so my second poll question that I came up with is, if you were managing a contract research organization, would you be interested in participating in a consortium to share resources or expand capabilities? Because I think that as we have more and more people become interested in setting these up with their community college, I think anything we can do to kind of expand those capabilities and help everyone be more successful is going to just make everything run better and everybody be more successful. And that's the conclusion of my part of this, and I'm going to turn things back over to Sue, and I'll stick around, so I'm happy to field any questions at the end and answer them to the best of my ability. Sue, back to you.
Thank you, Betsy. That was a great presentation. We could see, how you progress through your ups and downs through the organization, and you are doing great now. Thank you so much for giving us the presentation on how you all landed up here. Next slide, we go on to Tyler Drake. He's going to talk about the incubator that's set up at Austin Community College. And after this, we'll take some questions. In the interest of time, we will keep the questions short, but you can always email any of our presenters. Their emails are on the slides, and they will definitely help you out with any of the questions you have. Thank you. Tyler, go ahead.
All right.
Take it up.
Yep. Thanks, Sue. We're just going to jump right in. So we have about 12 minutes remaining in time. As Sue said, I'm Tyler Drake. I'm the director of the BioScience Incubator, which is a brand new facility that we're opening at Austin Community College. Okay. And so, why are we doing this here at ACC? So Central Texas has traditionally had a shortage of wet lab space for young companies, and also lacked a skilled workforce for its growing biotech industry. So what was happening is a lot of small companies would spin out of a university and then flee to one of the coasts, either Boston area or California, to find wet lab space to actually launch their products and ideas. So the ACC BioScience Incubator, and I'll refer to it as ABI throughout the presentation, we aim to establish a permanent wet lab facility and business incubator to accelerate the biotech economy while training a skilled workforce. So, we're very similar to a lot of the presentations you saw today. We're just doing most of this work in a new in-house facility. So, a little bit of background. ACC has had a long-term commitment to community success. Over the past several years, the ACC Biotech Program piloted several CRO, CSO studies. Actually, Sulatha led quite a bit of this work when she was here. Partnering with local startups, faculty would lead a project, some interns would get trained, and we would turn that data back over to the company. So with that, economic data that we were able to attain from these pilot studies, ACC packaged that into a grant proposal, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded a $4.9 million grant from the state of Texas to expand the wet lab capacity of the region. So they started small, partnered with a few startup companies, but showed the economic benefit of this, and were able to land a larger grant. So what do? We build a gap in the research to product cycle. So we have researchers oftentimes that spin out of local 4-year universities in the area and need somewhere to go to start their company outside of the IP restrictions that those 4-year universities put on them. So we aim to create an innovative work environment for life science entrepreneurs. We provide wet lab space and equipment for people to commercialize products. So a little bit about the facility. I'm actually sitting in the facility today for the first time. We're just occupying. We have our grand opening next Tuesday, which we're scrambling to install equipment and make everything look nice. This space is a 10,000 square foot renovation of, I wrote the historic Highland Mall, depends on who you talk to. It was one of the first malls in Austin. It was built in 1971. ACC purchased it a few years ago and has been renovating different sections. We were fortunate enough to renovate some old storefronts into wet lab space. So why should companies use, could you come back like 10 minutes? Sorry. Someone's coming in to touch up paint. Why should companies use the ABI? What do we offer? So we offer leasable wet lab space. We offer space from an individual benchtop the whole way up to full labs. We have startup business development. A lot of this is through a partnership with the Austin Technology Incubator, which is a group out of the University of Texas that we partnered with. They have been doing business development in Austin for 30 years, so we thought that was a good idea to partner with people with experience in the region. We have about $1 million of core laboratory equipment and instrumentation. We have our workforce education through classes that will be taught out of the space, and also interns that we've hired. Staff, and we also do contract research projects where we just do an in-house project for companies and turn the data over to them. So just briefly, a little bit about what we look for in companies that we will fully incubate, bring into the space. We want them to be profit-focused in the life sciences, positioned to take a proprietary product to market. We look at a little bit of financial considerations. Normally they're seed or pre-seed. We aim to help them with their ideas and also help them with things like pitch decks and marketing, so they can grow and raise that first Series A major funding round. We also ask a lot of questions to the companies about their willingness to collaborate with ACC faculty or hire interns. This is usually actually something that they get very excited about once we start explaining the different possibilities of working with faculty or interns. We like them to have a Texas presence. This is funded from the state, so we need the companies to, we hope that they stay in the state afterwards. And we also work with some more mature firms, larger companies that may not need, they're not relocating their full company, but maybe just a new product arm or stepping into the life science market for the first time. So leadership, it's my myself, I'm the director. Nancy Lyon is the coordinator. She's the lab manager in reality. And then Dr. Linnea Fletcher is the department chair of biotech at ACC. And then, as I mentioned before, we're partnered with a few other incubators in the region, mainly ATI, who Cindy Walker-Peach is the director of, and the Texas Life Science Collaboration Center, who Dr. Mike Douglas is the director of that. So we're partnered with both of those groups as well. They've helped us get off the ground and grow. Just to recap of our partners, the one logo that's missing from this slide, shockingly, is AC2 and Biolink. So, give credit where credit is due. We wouldn't be able to do a lot of this work without help from some of the other presenters and experiences that they've gone through that you heard about today. I saw in the chat, some mentions of AC2 document archive for contracts and other documents. I think that would be a great idea. It's one of the bigger struggles when you start is developing these contracts. I think to have a template or a precedent from another college goes a long way when you're working with your own administration and selling some of these ideas. So this slide is just to show our network. We try to be a hub in this larger group of people. Industry groups, that's places like BioAustin, which is a industry meetup group. Of course, we have our member companies who we work with. We're quickly building a mentor group, and these are other more seasoned entrepreneurs and CEO level leadership that have shown interest in helping new companies. Economic development interests, we work with the Office of the Governor as well as the Chamber of Commerce, and I found them to be really good resources for recruiting companies, and then just other various key partners in town. So some early achievements. I spoke about the Texas Life Science Center in a previous slide, and what our partnership did is they allowed us to use a little bit of lab space in their facility while we were finishing out the Highland Mall to test some of these ideas and really figure out how ACC could work with companies. So there's some photos of that space up there. It's about 1,500 square foot of wet lab space. We outfitted it through a grant with some equipment. We currently have 7 CSO contracts being run in that space, and we were able to support a local company on their STTR proposal, which they received a $225,000 award, which we're proud about. This is just a recap of some of the member companies. I apologize for the look of the slide. It got a little goofy when it got copied over. But these slides cover quite a wide range of research in the life sciences, from food science to environmental testing, cranial implants, stem cells, and then some real chemistry-based pharmaceutical research. Just 2 case studies. Now, I have this slide and the one that follows. I de-identified the company information for both. So they're a little generic, but it does give me an idea of the type of metrics we track and what we look at when we're working with companies. So Company A here required wet lab space and equipment to complete proof of concept studies surrounding a new biological monitoring technique they had. And so we were able to supply them with the infrastructure, meaning the lab space and some basic equipment to do their proof of concept studies. So they completed those proof of concept studies in about 3 months, along with help from one of our interns. They were able to actually launch the technology as a product, and are actually soliciting contracts from local and state governments for water-term monitoring. And then also the CEO and founder worked with ACC faculty and actually led a class on qPCR, which our students really enjoyed. So if you look briefly, and this is a very kind of take a step back, top-down approach to doing these calculations, but they used about the equivalent value of about $90,000 of equipment from ACC, and then they were looking to build their own wet lab facility before they found the bioscience incubator, and they reported about $70,000 to finish the build out of about 700 square feet of office space. So you can see how costly it is, and I believe Deborah commented on before in the very beginning of this whole today's presentation how costly it is for companies to finish out wet lab space. So we saved the company time and money, which made everyone very happy. And then ACC stakeholders were very happy because the founder worked with faculty members to develop a curriculum which would be taught in subsequent years. So second case study, I'm almost out of time, so I'll go really, really briefly. This was a company was awarded a Department of Defense SBIR Phase 2 grant, And once again, they were shopping around Austin trying to find a place to actually do the research. When we met them, so we were able to supply wet lab space, some equipment, and 2 interns for this company. Long story short, after about a year, they completed their research. They found some new applications for their technology in both the brain and the skin, which they're looking to take to market now. And kind of more importantly to the ACC stakeholders, they supported those 2 interns, taught them some new skills, and served as references during their job interview, or during those interns' job interviews, which both got hired. So I'm going to wrap up at 1:29, about in 1 minute early here. Here's just my contact information. These slides will be available afterwards. And that is all. And so I encourage everyone to stick around for questions, and I suspect Sue will take back over for that section. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tyler. That was very interesting to know how you guys have progressed from being just a CSO to an incubator, and good luck with the opening on January 31st. Couple of quick questions. There were very interesting questions on the chat. Thank you for all those nice questions from the participants. I have a couple of questions which I think is very important to go over quickly. One of them was talking about IP issues, company confidentiality, insurance requirement, environmental health and safety. I think a lot of these were addressed piece by piece between Betsy, Mary, and Tyler. But one aspect that didn't come about, or maybe it was skimmed through very quickly, was the environmental health and safety. Can one of the presenters just give a quick overview of what you guys do? Do you guys, when a company comes into the incubator, do you ask them to take your safety training? Is it a requirement from the school? And on top of that, what else do you train them?
I can jump on this one first. We talked about several different ways of doing this, and I wasn't really satisfied with getting access to ACC's internal health and safety training for companies. So what we have done is every company that comes in, even if they're a one person or 10-person company, we have them identify a quote-unquote health and safety officer within their company. And then that is the person that we know to go directly to if we see any problems. Now, the first day that they come in, we do a site-specific training, and then have all the company members sign off that, yes, they acknowledge that they received training from us. But it's been very helpful to force the companies to identify a health and safety officer, just so that we're not chasing around every employee and we have a direct line of communication to someone within that company.
That's great. Thank you, Tyler. The next question that we'll quickly go over is, how do you work with the revenues? Do you, like CRO, how do you handle these revenues? What percentage goes back to the school? And how much does the CRO keep? Projects versus administration? Can you give a very quick overview on that?
I can take this one if you like. We do have a completely separate CRO budget, and now we are still kind of working on things this year, but in previous years, whatever costs, whatever monies we've brought in with our various lab use contracts has gone directly into that CRO budget, and we have been able to have any rollover money that was not spent at the end of fiscal had come back to us. This is the first year that we have not yet received that rollover from last fiscal, but we always reinvest that money. It actually goes back into equipment maintenance and maybe supplying, a lot of the stuff that we're using with some of the high school research that we're doing are consumable things like competent cells and kits that we use to isolate plasmid, things along those lines, and those can be actually quite costly. And so we kind of reinvest it in purchasing supplies that we can use for a variety of purposes on site here.
Thank you, Betsy. That was very helpful. And so let's move on. And if you guys have any more questions, you can email the presenters and they'll definitely give you an answer. These are the resources on Biolink. I will not go over it. You go to the website and take a look at it. We usually have a summer fellows. The June 7th to 10th is not the right date. We are yet to decide the date on that. One more thing, we are having another webinar on February 17th on skill standards and how do you implement them in your classrooms. And it'll be a great one because there are a lot of interesting speakers. They've done a lot of work on that, and so I'm hoping you guys will join us for that. That will come up, it is already on the Biolink website. You can get all the information from there. And there is also another resource. Actually, Daniel is on our participant list. He runs a Biolink depot where you can get equipment and consumables at a very, very low cost. And these CROs can access these equipment depot. If you go online on biolink.org, you can get into the Biolink depot and you can see what resources you have. And Daniel is a great person. He'll help you with whatever you need. And believe me, it's really at a very low cost. And especially for startup companies and for schools, this will be really, really helpful. Now, please don't leave without doing the survey. This survey is very important for us because it is a grant-funded organization, Biolink, and because of the grant from National Science Foundation, we're able to bring these webinars to you free of cost. But NSF needs feedback from you guys so that they can improve their services, improve the grant situation. So please fill out the survey that's on the screen now. And thank you very much for attending this webinar and great feedback on the chat and lovely questions. So please keep that going, and I'm sure you can get a lot of help from all of our presenters. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sulatha. And everyone, this officially ends our webinar. Your survey may open in another browser window, so please take a moment and go ahead and complete that survey. Thank you, presenters. Goodbye, everyone.